You know, personally speaking, I think the best thing about being in Japan itself for the World Cup isn't the atmosphere, the beautiful setting, the wonderful friendly locals, the getting to watch a game between Wales and Australia in person where Curtly Beale doesn't score in the last minute. It's not even not having to be jealous of people like me. It's watching from a Tokyo bar as Kenki Fukuoka scores to put Japan ahead against Ireland, and getting to do exactly what I wanted to do when Karen Hesketh went over in 2015 and turn a few metres to my right and hug a random Japanese person. Japan beating Ireland, who went into the tournament as the world number one, let's just not forget, may not have been as big an upset as the Brighton Miracle, but it just might be the more remarkable result for the simple reason that this was not a miracle. This was a very level, high-intensity rugby match in which one side matched and eventually outperformed the other. Sure, the Shinizuka excellent performance and deserved result may not be as catchy a title for the sequel, but this result deserved a movie no more than Wales beating Australia did, because for me, 6:30pm on Saturday, the 28th of September 2019, was the moment Japan did what only Italy and Argentina have ever done before them, and moved up from Tier 2 status to become a fully fledged first-class rugby nation. Japan were brilliant. There was not an aspect of the game in which they were outperformed. The game felt like two big teams clattering at each other. It felt like an upset in the way Argentina beating Ireland is, rather than a team nominally a whole tier below. The game was filled with moments worth pouring into and revisiting. This scrum on the 34th minute was a statement almost on par with scoring a try. This turnover by Kazuki Himeno after a prolonged patch of attack by Ireland was enormous. And then we have two moments in which the whole world became kinky for Kenki, as Fukuoka scored what wound up being the winner and took this amazing interception and almost made it all the way to seal it with a second. So, how did Japan mastermind this ascent to the top of the pool, and what went on with an Irish side who should have been so confident of victory? The eventual result was made all the more impressive by the fact Ireland shot out to a 12-0 start. This try by Rob Kearney was just opportunism, but their other try through Gary Ringrose was a classic case of Joe Schmidt doing his homework on the opposition. If you watch any Japan game from the last year, they defend with their wingers in very narrow. Instead of hugging the touchline, they tend to stand far further infield, often inside the 15-metre line. This partly helps them pick an easier angle to support and counter-attack, but primarily it's just a factor in how they defend. The Japanese wingers tend to shoot right up to cut off the space. They're not really there to make a tackle a lot of the time, just more to put the attack off, to get in the eye line and make it feel like the space is covered and crowded. The fullback then slides into the wing channel behind to cover and make the tackle if the ball does get that far, if the opposition do get outside them. Honestly, this system is pretty much a winger's dream. No tackling, minimal pressure, and sometimes you even get an intercept. It's beautiful. This play, a few minutes before the try, was also designed to exploit it, a series of dummy runners forcing Masashima to cut in before a brilliant ball goes over his head to the winger in a play from Schmidt's stockpile marked Stockdale. It was clear that Schmidt had identified this as Japan's biggest weakness and something he was going to exploit. So, when they got into the 22, just watch Jack Carty. He's looking at either wing constantly, waiting for the cross kick to be on, because he knows if he bides his time, the chance will present itself. He continues to order phases from his forwards, not calling the ball to come out until the Lemke has come far enough in field. The moment he has, Carty hangs it in the corner, allowing Ringrose time to leap through the air like a particularly happy sheep, claim the ball and smack it down for the try. This was part of an interesting performance by Ringrose. Normally, Ireland like to use him as a strike runner, a wide threat, a link man, typical outside centre things, just making the most of the fact he's more committed to number 13 than Jason Voorhees. However, on Saturday, whenever he wasn't too busy hoarding letter R's, Gary Ringrose would float around the pitch as an alternate playmaker, and Ireland pulled a few plays like this, moves designed to get him into position to slide a kick through or to float out a pass himself. This alternate usage of Ringrose's talent is just one mark of how differently to usual Ireland approached the match. In the post-match press conference, Japan coach Jamie Joseph said his team had been thinking about this game for 3 years, and Ireland had only been thinking about it since Monday. In some ways, I think Joseph is spot on, but at the same time, I think this game has actually been an absolutely crucial part of Joe Schmidt's World Cup master plan ever since the draw was made, and he's been thinking about this fixture for a full 3 years. So what the hell am I talking about? And if he's been eyeing it for so long, how has a coach as smart as Schmidt managed to blow a game against supposedly inferior opposition? In order to answer this, we're going to need to go right back to the beginning and break down how Ireland play, what Schmidt's plan now to me appears to be, and why things went quite so wrong. And I apologise because I'm going to talk about Ireland a lot for the next few minutes, and yet I also want to really just focus on Japan and how magnificent magnificent they were, but bear with me because I think these things might be important both going forward and for this game. So, about 2.5 years ago, Ireland shifted to playing an incredibly careful and regimented game plan, to which there was basically no deviating. No team in Test Rugby sticks as stringently to their system as the Irish. The basic strategy is this, to break it down to its core, most simple basics. Ireland like to keep hold of possession. Joe Schmidt doesn't like risk, and when they have the ball, they're in control. So they often rack up 120 to 150 phases a game. They set the field up like this: 2 groups of 3 forwards and a fly half to select which of those 6 runners to use, and then backs out the back or floating in between the forwards to link things together or play wider. Ireland do not let the ball go near the touchline. Ireland do not offload. Both risk giving the ball away to the opposition, and for Schmidt, no risks are worth taking outside the opposition 22. Unless there's an overlap that's as blatant at one glance as it is that Keith Earls is related to a ginger nut biscuit, the only time Ireland ever go into the 15-metre channel is when they set up a box kick, which they do often. Normally, they just work between these 2 lines back and forth, 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 until eventually the opposition begins to tire or they decide to kick. The entire game is built around maximising percentages, building a game as close to computed as can be managed by the idiot human Schmidt needs to field for the next 13 years until World Rugby realises there is no concussion risk if all the players are robots. Simply put, Ireland are incredibly disciplined and strictly keep to the same game plan no matter how the game is going, because they know eventually it will see them through. Until Saturday. For most of the game, Ireland did not play like Ireland. They offloaded 8 times on Saturday, and they offloaded just 13 times over 5 games in the Six Nations for context. And this doesn't even include attempts that went to the floor, with players not used to throwing, or more importantly, receiving and getting in position to receive offloads whilst in the green jersey. And it wasn't just individuals disobeying orders. This is a particularly fun example. This whole play is orchestrated. It's carefully worked over a few phases for ringrose to attack the blind side. And even when the tackle is made, watch Conor Murray. He never looks at the open side at all the other players. The plan was clearly to go right outright twice. Ireland went into this game deliberately looking to be different to normal, which begs the question, why? This is where I come back to the idea of Joe Schmidt's master plan. For some way out, I believe it was part of Schmidt's plan to play the most Ireland brand of rugby possible against Scotland, then win this game by playing in a very different style. When the draw will be made, Schmidt will have identified this game as one Ireland would likely win, but it's the trickiest of their 3 Tier 2 fixtures, and would have the extra tension of it being at prime time against the host nation. As such, this was the perfect time to catch some eyes by being different, while still coming through with a result. This World Cup will probably be won by some little bit of analysis, some observation, some out-the-box thinking that gives one coach an extra 2 or 3% over their opposite number. And I believe this was what Schmidt was thinking of. Look at this game from an opposition coach perspective. If Ireland are now attacking the fringe, your defence will need to put extra numbers there. If they're offloading, you may need to commit a second man to the tackle to wrap the ball up to make sure they don't get it away. I believe this was the plan. To leave his old chums Razzie, Warren, Eddie and Steve trembling at the thought of facing him and unsure what they'll expect. Just to put a few doubts in their mind, to make them ask a few more questions based on what they've seen today. Joseph was wrong to say Schmidt hasn't been thinking about this game, but he was spot on in suggesting Ireland weren't thinking about Japan. In his head, Schmidt wasn't playing the host nation on Saturday. He was trying to play Erasmus, Hansen, Gatland and Jones. What he didn't consider, however, was that despite starting with a weaker hand, Jamie Joseph is every bit the equal of those 5 first-class coaches and has been doing lots of work on Ireland. As I mentioned, Ireland always have a man there to clear out quickly in support, meaning they can control the pace of the game and hence the match. Knowing this would make it hard to complete the breakdown, Japan would send a second man in before the ball got to ground, slowing it down before it was even a ruck. And on their own board, Japan approached things with a xenophobically typical efficiency. The Japanese breakdown isn't about clearing players out, it's about making sure no threat can get to the ball in the first place. It's about eating up the space that somebody could attack right away, and the secondary wave of players are there to support, to just lend their weight to the first group of players. Japan won 115 of their 116 rucks throughout the game. They just wanted to keep hold of the ball. Look at how they played the kickoff after half time, just trying to win it back right away. They knew this was the best way to counter Ireland, because the Irish can't keep hold of the ball if they never have it in the first place. And they were confident that their year's worth of extra conditioning and training, instead of playing, as I highlighted in my Japan video, would give them an edge in retaining the ball. They also, as I highlighted in last week's video on the opener, tried to use this tactic of picking up the ball when no ruck was formed and trying to eke out an extra few metres. And Schmidt had, as predicted, done his homework. This forced Ireland to commit a man to the tackle, even if the ruck was, as we just discussed, a lost cause. And whilst Ian Henderson was able to milk a penalty out this early on, it meant the likes of Rory Best here were having to make us show the fact they were holding on to prevent them getting back up to their feet, and hence unable to rejoin the defensive line immediately. Then watch how the likes of Nagare and Thompson here target the space either side of the breakdown, with Ireland slow in setting a guard thanks to Joseph having just planted this seed last week, and it just being watered by Japan doing it a few times here and there. And all Schmidt had in response on Japan was this one piece of analysis that I mentioned at the beginning. Their wingers stand narrow, so he pulled a few plays from his backlog to hit them with. But Japan countered everything he threw at them. After half time, they slid their wingers out wider and brought on the super rapid Kenki Fukuoka, allowing him to move Kotaro Masashima to fullback, meaning his backfield had more than enough pace to cover the space. And if Ireland did put them in a tricky situation, they could get out of it using that pace. This left Ireland with nothing but their system to break Japan down, and they even failed to utilise that properly, as Joey Carberry started doing his own thing and trying to be the game breaker instead of calmly working through the phases and seeing if Japan eventually gave way. Because they didn't give way, Japan defended superbly and took their chance when they got it. And this was all aided by what I think was the best individual performance of the tournament so far, from who I think is the player of the tournament so far, because Kazuki Himeno was Kazuki Himens. Himeno did everything. He tackled, he carried, he won turnovers. He's been talked up in past as the next Michael Leach, as the guy to take the captaincy when the old warhorse retires. And if he keeps playing like this, there's little doubt that it'll be his face we'll be seeing around Tokyo everywhere in 4 years' time. And because that tournament in France may just be the one where Japan are finally treated as the tier 1 nation they may well have just informed the world they are. It's possible that this is a discussion for another time, but Japan have now defeated Scotland, Ireland, Italy, Wales, Argentina, South Africa, and drawn with France, meaning they only need 3 more major nations before they have the full set. And the way they played on Saturday, it only feels like a matter of time before we're seeing their number 23 once again cross for a try against a bigger team, causing me to once again turn around and look for a random Japanese person willing to accept the warmest of hugs on behalf of all of the rugby world. So Japan actually beat Ireland, and I actually made a video on it. I actually got that one out. So I'm trying to catch up on as many games as possible. I am also going to this is about an hour before Georgia play Fiji in the Hanazono Rugby Stadium, just over there. A stadium that's never hosted anything but rugby, which is my kind of stadium. And behind me on the other side, if I now turn around here, is Rugger Station. I have no idea what Rugger Station is, but it's that. That is Rugger Station. I am trying to catch up with as many games as possible, so I'm doing a couple of roundups. I am going to get going with New Zealand v South Africa. I've begun writing that. That's all underway. That's happening. And Wales v Australia as well. So all of that is hopefully coming quite soon. But coming sooner is that. As I said, there's about an hour to kick off, so we'll get going there. I am currently a Glory supporter. I've come in a Uruguay shirt. And there's just loads to go, loads to happen. It's Japan, isn't it? It's Japan. Look at it, it's Rugger Station. Someday I'll find out what Rugger Station truly is.